Mobile hunters, if you're interested in upping your mobile game, then head to tetherednation.com and check out their saddle gear. There are a few things that you can buy that will actually help you become a better deer hunter or give you the freedom to hunt any tree or any situation. This reason is why I started saddle hunting in the first place and why I use Tethered's gear. I can honestly say that Tethered's saddle gear has changed how I hunt for the better. Big tree, little tree, from the ground, it doesn't matter. I'm untethered by my gear to hunt the best setup for the situation instead of hunting for a tree that my gear can use. My current course setup consists of the Phantom saddle, tethered one sticks, and the Predator platform, and along with an assortment of their accessories. So if you want to up your mobile game, head over to tetherednation.com. If you're like me, you spend a lot of time poring over maps, looking at weather data, all in an effort to help predict when and where my best times are to hunt. It'd be nice if there was a reliable source with all this information in one place. Enter the Spartan Forge app. Unlike some other predictive apps on the market, Spartan Forge was created from military combat intelligence experience tailored for hunters and stands at the nexus of machine learning and whitetail deer hunting. No more man-made algorithms. This is a predictive model based on real GPS collared deer data, historical and predictive weather, and the next level of mapping imagery, all at my fingertips. I've had an opportunity to use the desktop version last year and have been using the iOS app this season, and it has replaced all my other mapping tools. Visit SpartanForge.ai and sign up today, or head to your iOS or Android app store and download it today. Welcome to the Truth from a Stand Deer Hunting Podcast, brought to you by Skull Brew Coffee Company. I'm your host, Clint Campbell, and you're listening to episode number 267. Today, I'm catching up with my good buddy Josh Ilderton from the Untamed, and we're talking mountain bucks, lessons learned, and much more. So stay tuned. All right. What is up, everyone? Happy Wednesday to you. Hope you are doing well. Hope you are feeling fine. I am finally on the mend. Not 100% quite yet, but definitely a damn sight better than I was last weekend. Here in PA, at least in my region, well, a lot of the state ended earlier, but hunting season is officially over. Deer season is officially over, I guess I should say. Wrapped up this past weekend, and unfortunately for my late season plans did not kind of play out how I had hoped. Various reasons, a couple illnesses, the flu over the holidays, some family obligations on some of the weekends, and then of course got the Rona here the past couple weeks. So have not really been out in the timber doing a whole hell of a lot of anything, which is kind of a bummer, but it is what it is. I often put most of my eggs in the earlier part of the season baskets when I take my time off. It's when I basically let the family know that I am unavailable for nearly anything and everything, except life-threatening circumstances. And so with that, my late season is always a little bit of a crapshoot, but I did anticipate that I'd get out more than I did this year, and it just was not in the cards. So I have been kind of monitoring a couple cell cameras. There's a couple decent bucks that were showing up, of course, this past kind of week and a half while I've been sick and not been able to do anything about it. But the good news is they're around and made it through the year so long as the winter isn't too harsh. We just got a bunch of snow. Well, I shouldn't say a bunch of snow. Probably got like 6 inches. But as long as the winter's not too harsh, they should still be around for next year and be a year more mature and just as fun to chase as they would have been this year. But going to keep this up front short. Just kind of jumped into today's podcast, but before we do that, I have a couple pieces of housekeeping here. As you guys know, the Great American Outdoor Show is coming up. I'm going to be at the Tethered booth 1033 and the Exodus booth 927 on, I think it's February 5th. I don't know exactly what the times are. I think there might be some specific time slots that I might be at the Tethered booth. You can follow my Instagram page for that. I'll post that whenever I know. And then, if you guys want to stop by and say what's up, have a chat. Talk trail cameras, talk saddles, talk deer hunting in general. Those are the two places I will mainly be those days. But with that, my buddies at Exodus gave me a heads up that, of course, you guys know, those are good buddies of mine. I hunt with Chad, been hunting with Chad for years, and they make top level trail cameras and have probably the best customer service in the entire trail camera space. And over the last 7 years, Exodus, consistently has shown that they build quality trail cameras. I literally have cameras out that I've had since day one when I first started kind of working with Exodus and knew who they were. I got a trail camera. It's still been out in the timber. This is going on, I want to say like 5 years now, and that thing is still just ticking and running. But if there were an instance where something happened, they have a 5-year warranty that backs every single camera that they sell. That's literally half a decade, and you'll be covered with the Exodus 5-year warranty. But like I said, you probably won't need it because they're just built to last. And I've had several that I've beaten the piss out of that are still working. But in the honor of trade show season, so let's say an instance where you can't get out to the trade show to pick up on those sweet deals that typically every company is running at these trade shows, they just gave me a heads up that they're kicking off an opportunity to buy their Exodus Render, which is their 4G LTE camera, their cell camera that sends pictures and videos to any device through the Scout Tech app. You can save 15% by being one of the first 100 customers to use the promo code Showtime. That's SHOWTIME, all one word, when you check out on the Exodus website. This code will save you over $50 on the Exodus Render and almost $75 on the security bundle. These types of savings don't come around too often, so I encourage you to check out this deal if you're in the market for a reliable trail camera. Once again, use the code Showtime to save 15% off any render purchase. They don't have sales very often, guys. This is they kind of have these at specific moments throughout the year. So don't overlook the opportunity. If you are going to get a trail camera this year, a couple new trail cameras this year, this would be the time to pick it up. So head over to ExodusOutdoorGear.com and check that out. Use the promo code Showtime. All right. With that, today we have a super cool show for you guys. I have my good buddy Josh Ilderton on the show from the Untamed. Had him on probably just about a year ago. I want to say, and Josh has fast become one of my favorite people just to kind of talk to in general, aside from being an awesome deer hunter, hunting on the ground in mountain country, in most cases, just a super good dude. He was on the THP Public Land Challenge this year whenever they were in Indiana. So we talk a little bit about that, and we talk a little bit about travel hunting and, some of the miscues that we both maybe had made this year, and what his plan is for going forward. And then he had a couple awesome hunts this year, but recently in December, the Untamed launched a video of Josh filling his West Virginia tag. Super killer hunt, kind of a wild set of circumstances. So if you haven't checked that show out, I would highly recommend that you check that out. And if you haven't subscribed to their channel, I'd highly recommend subscribing to their channel. They got a ton of cool deer hunting, turkey hunting, bear hunting with hounds, super cool stuff. So without further ado, we're going to go ahead and just jump into today's show. And as always, I want to thank you all for listening. All right, folks, welcome back to another episode of the Truth from the Stand Deer Hunting Podcast. And today I got my buddy on the line. You'll recognize the dulcet tones of my brother from another mother, the man from West, by God, rootin' tootin', Virginia, a knee blowing out, hog hunting, bear wrestling, deer killing from the ground, Josh Ilderton. What's going on, brother?
How you doing, Clint?
I'm doing good, man. Now that we got all of our technical things kind of figured out, man, it took us just shy of a decade to get this thing turned on.
Well, that's all right, man. Somebody that's been doing it as long as there's got to be some foul ups every now and then.
That's right. Well, hey, it's more than a little now and then. It's like deer hunting, man. It's like you think by this time I got her figured out, but man, it seems like my seasons. I always look back and I'm like, man, okay. Let's count the ways how I screwed this up. It's like it's like a notch on the bedpost, but in a bad kind of way. For me. So how you been, man? What's going on? I got a little sippy here going on. I think we were gonna break bread. I'm gonna put on video here so you can see my pretty face. Cheers to you.
Here's to you. What's your choice this evening?
Man, I am sipping on some Old Forester. 1897 is what I got.
Okay. Yeah, man. I'm a Forester fan.
Are you? You look like you might be a Forester fan.
Yeah, I like the 1920.
Okay. Yeah, I got that downstairs too. I got the 1897, the 1920. There's a 1905, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I got.
So they all go from I think 86 to 115.
Yeah. Yeah. And so I'm sipping the lighter one tonight. It's a school night. So I'm trying. I'm trying to keep it on the real on a school night. I don't need to be
exactly.
I work from home, so I could be a little busted up if I want to be, but it just makes the day too hard, man. I'm too old for that anymore. I am trying to sip.
Bad about that,
right? Yeah, I know, right? Trying to sip to keep the Rona away right now because we got the Rona floating around my house, so I'm trying to drown her out.
Well, speaking of the Rona, I fought it last week. Went down to the ATA and it was just a cesspool.
Yeah.
I mean, on our way back Sunday, like by Monday morning, we were getting texts from everybody we hung out with. Hey, I just tested positive. Hey, I tested positive, and I've
Right.
dodged it for 2 years,
Yeah. I'm the same way.
and really hadn't done anything to protect myself, but went down there and got it. And of course, I'm vaccinated, so I
Right.
was sick for 2 or 3 days,
Yeah.
and finally got back to work today. So
That's good.
today was the first day I'm feeling like myself.
Yeah. Yeah. My wife, she's got it pretty good, man. Like she doesn't have like she didn't get like a fever or like really even a cough or anything. Like hers was more just like a ripping headache and a really kind of jacked up GI system, you know, and she's going on.
I had the GI problems.
Yeah.
And then like my eyeballs hurt, my lower back, my hips, hell, my daggone testicles were hurting.
you gotta get a release there, son.
Jesus. And that was it. It was like 2 or 3 days of that, and then I was just absolutely just whooped. I mean, I just felt lethargic, man. Just wanted just to lay all day.
Yeah, yeah. I was just hoping personally. I was just hoping I made it through hunting season without.
Yeah.
Because I just didn't want to be laid up. Because you know, it's one thing to be sick, but it's like, you know, regardless of whether it's that or the flu or whatever, it's like there's always that period after where you just kind of you're better, but you still kind of feel like dog shit, you know, and you're tired. And
when you have a fever, I think it's the worst thing in the world to try to fight off as a fever. I mean, you can hunt through a lot of stuff, but hunting through a fever,
yeah,
it's just miserable.
Yeah, especially if you're doing a lot of hiking. You got you know, where you're at, especially you got a lot of elevation to kind of deal with and stuff like that. So it's not easy on the lungs either. And that, you know, when you ain't got the stamina, it just makes it that much harder.
Oh yeah, that's a fact. I mean, this year was I was kind of hindered because of my knee surgery.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you because I know you healed up pretty quick. You know, we were texting over the summer and stuff like that, and I was bummed out that it was blown out because, you know, you did it kind of late in the summer too, where I was like, dang man, that's going to be.
I was worried.
Yeah.
But the surgeon that did my surgery, he's got this new, it's called a fertilized ACL, and it fertilizes it with eggs and stuff, and then, you know, he didn't repair the MCL; it's just gone. He repaired the meniscus, and then my tibia was broke too, and it healed. But man, I recovered to be my age. I mean, I was really happy with my recovery.
Yeah.
I mean, I was getting in a tree with Brody, my son, mid-September.
Yeah. And when did that happen? Because you were hunting hogs with Greg and those guys, right?
Well, I was hunting turkeys.
Oh, it was turkeys. Okay.
Yeah, Greg and those guys had come up to hunt turkeys with us the last weekend of season. So it was the end of May.
Okay.
And Greg wanted to see these hogs. We jumped up, and, you know, once we saw the hogs, then I poked the bear. And when you poke the bear, it doesn't go good.
Right.
We look like Greg and I look like, I don't know if you've seen those guys on YouTube, the Jalala brothers, and they're from Australia, and they drop like the dynamite, and they say that song comes up, "Run." That's what should have been.
Man,
they could have made all kinds of memes and gifs out of us.
All right. Oh, that's crazy. Yeah, because you don't strike me as the guy that would poke the bear.
I normally do, but I normally do in better circumstances. I mean, I do it with trees around that we can jump in, or we might even have a gun.
Right.
We didn't have a gun with it, and they just caught us out in the open field. So,
man. Yeah, that ain't no
and those
good.
sons of guns are quick.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. Like, people don't realize how mean those things are too, man. Like, they ain't friendly.
No. Once you poke them and provoke them, they tend not to want you around anymore.
Right.
But it's a good life experience. It's a great story.
Right.
And it's, you know, just one of those other things. It's like that, see what you do in adversity.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
I look at it.
Yeah, and I know we were texting back and forth because I was bummed out, man. Like you said, like I was hoping you were going to heal up quick enough, at least to be able to get back in and enjoy, a little bit of season. Because I couldn't imagine having to sit out a whole. I mean, there's a lot worse things. That's let's be real. There's a lot people go through a lot worse. So
Yeah.
but still, it's hard to sit out for a whole year of something that you have a passion for, that you love to do, and
That's all I'm worried about, man. I kept on telling that surgeon, hey, I got to get back. I want to be back hunting by October 1.
Mm-hmm.
And it took a little longer than that. I mean, I was still hunting with Brody because I kind of committed the first part of the season to hunt with him because he didn't have any, we were done with baseball and he hadn't started basketball up. So, and he's never killed a deer with his bow.
Mm.
So I was kind of committed to hunting with him the first part of the season, and he had a few opportunities. And then I started hunting when we went on the public land challenge. That was the first time that I actually got in the woods myself.
Okay, yeah. And Brody had a pretty good year, man. Like he ended up killing a buck, didn't he?
Yeah, he killed 2 bucks with his gun. He killed a doe with his gun, and I think he missed 5 does, and then he stuck a 10-point with
Nice.
his bow.
Nice.
But the deer lived.
Oh, it did? Okay.
Yeah, he hit it. He no-manned it.
Right. Yeah, I did that with a doe this year, actually. It was like, man, I want to say it was probably like right at the end of September. I was just looking to put some meat in the freezer, and she came in and she picked me off, and it was a now or never type of shot, and I had a good shot. I just rushed it, and I hit her high in no man's land, and that was all.
Yeah.
That was it.
That's what I told him. I mean, it's so fun. I mean, I think we even texted about it. Things that I take for granted hunting now.
Mm-hmm.
He hunting with Brody. He's 13. He just turned 13. I mean, he reminds me of so many things that I just take for granted as a hunter. And he gets aggravated because he misses deer, or he'll try to move in the tree stand and deer will bust him. And it's just getting those reps.
Mm-hmm.
And as a quote unquote seasoned hunter, like those things are just natural for us.
Mm-hmm.
Of when to move, when to pull back, what you can do, what you can't do. And it's just been fun because he just really started hunting with me this year, archery. Now, we've gun hunted a few times, but he really hadn't done it much. But then he got hooked on turkey hunting during COVID.
Mm-hmm.
The first year of COVID, we hunted every day except for 4 days.
Okay.
And that was in Virginia, Ohio, and West Virginia. And he got hooked that year. He had some encounters. He missed 2 birds. And I explained to him this year, like bow hunting, like it's the same thing. It's like I tell him, like when he's playing baseball, like we can practice as much as we can, but game time reps mean something.
Yeah.
It's the same. Like he can go out here in the yard and shoot out to 40 yards and he'll shoot a 2 or 3 inch group. But until he gets in the stand and gets in that situation and gets those game time reps, that experience in the woods, and I really think that he learned a lot this year. And I reverted back and talked about a lot of stuff that I just take for granted that I think that I think he'll find success this next season.
Yeah.
I'm really looking forward to it.
I think that's one thing that I've appreciated about you is you're kind of mentoring. Like you just have a mentoring kind of personality. You know what I mean? Like even when you and I talk or we text or whatever, like there's always, you're always willing to kind of share information or whatever, you know? And it's cool that you get to do that with your son. And I like the fact that like he had some tough kind of situations this year, because it's good to learn that early. Cause I know guys that, their first deer they ever killed was a giant. Like my buddy Chad Sylvester, for example, first deer he ever killed was 180 and some change, now he's a good hunter, so it's not like it ruined him or anything like that. But some guys, if they get the success real early, they feel like that's just the way it should go. And then they struggle whenever they start to make mistakes. They have a little bit of a false sense of maybe their skill set. It might be one way to say it, where it's like, and then when you hit those learning moments, like you're like, man, does this happen to everybody? And it's just maybe a little harder to come back from because you're a little older. You know what I mean? But the reality is that, man, that happens to guys that have been doing it for years. You know what I mean? It's I hit one and lost one this year. I hit a buck last year in Missouri and lost it. Hit him or clipped the branch and stuck him in the shoulder and just didn't get enough penetration. And I've had a bad 2-year run. You know what I mean? Where it's like I've hit deer and lost them, or I was hunting on the ground in Kansas this year, and that was new for me, and I made a ton of mistakes out there. You know what I mean? I was there for 2 weeks, and I didn't feel like I was in the game until probably like day 12 of a 15-day hunt. You know what I mean? To where it's like, I was like, okay, I've screwed this up often enough now. I know kind of what I need to do and what my setup needs to be and when I need to draw. And I blew 2 opportunities on shooters this year just because I didn't draw in time. And I've been doing this long enough. Like, I know better, It's like, and, one was, behind a piece of brush, really couldn't see. I mean, I knew what it was, but he wasn't going to give me a shot opportunity. And one was legit. I was trying to figure out what deer it was, and I should have just drawn while I was figuring it out, because he looked just like another deer that I didn't want to shoot. And by the time he popped his head out and came out around this brush, it was nothing between me and him except air and opportunity, and I couldn't get drawn at that point. But I should have already been drawn.
Yeah,
and that's like a rookie mistake, and so it happens to everybody. And so it's like he'll be better for those. He doesn't think so now, because he's young, but.
Well, I mean, it's like, so this past turkey season, he found success with turkeys. I mean, we got out and we hunted, like, we didn't go out and just kill a bird this year. I mean, we had to hunt, and we had some encounters, and he kept on learning, that he needed to be in the gun. He had to be ready when to shoot, and he finally closed the deal. I mean, he tagged out in West Virginia this year. I mean, he killed 2 longbeards, and, it just made it, and of course it made my day too. I mean, I was like flipping super stoked.
Right.
I mean, I bet you every turkey in the mountains that could hear me probably didn't gobble for another week.
Nice.
But the experiences though that he had over the past 2 seasons paid off. He kept on grinding and kept on going out every morning. I mean, and it's fun to watch.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's, I don't get on to him. If I go in there at 3:30 or 4 in the morning, I say, brother, it's time to get up and hunt. And if he says, hey, I'm tired, Dad, I'll say, okay, stay, rest.
Yeah.
But if he says, hey, I'm getting up, he pops right up when he wants to go, he pops right up and gets after it. I mean, This year he was getting into he hunted by himself half a dozen, 8 times. I mean, I set him up lifelines at his tree stands, and he knows the rules that he's got to be clipped in at all times. And I let him go out by himself here on our small farm here where we live.
Mm-hmm.
And so he was hunting by himself, and by God, he would go out and he'd do 4 or 5 hour sits.
That's cool, man.
Mean, it really makes me proud of the hunter he's becoming.
Right. How would you say he was again? 13, did you say?
Yeah, he turned 13 this year.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, that's super awesome, man. I mean, it's cool to watch, especially, I mean, it's cool to watch just in general, but I imagine, being your son, getting to watch it as a dad, watching that little flame start to ignite.
Yeah, man.
You know what I mean? Where it's like,
yeah,
and because I saw it from a different perspective a little bit. I was older, but
right.
I think I mentioned this to you, like when we talked before. I hunted all my life growing up. Took a little bit of a break whenever I was doing music and, was on the road and doing stuff like that, where I just wasn't home very often. I was living in a different state. But I didn't start bow hunting until I was 30, because my dad really didn't bow hunt a lot. He would do some recurve hunting in the fall if it was really windy or if it was rainy. That's the only time he would take a bow out. Yeah. He would still hunt and try to sneak up on embedded and try to shoot one. But it was a lot of small game, a lot of rifle hunting, turkey hunting, ringnecks, rabbits, squirrels, whatever it was, I'd go out and chase it. So, my daughter's not super into hunting. I took her turkey hunting a couple times when she was younger. She just doesn't like to get up in the morning, and that's not her thing. She loves horses. She loves to ride horses. And I'm like, You like to be outdoors riding horses? Let's ride horses then, you know? But when I was sort of bow hunting, and this old timer, I had him on the podcast. I call him an old timer, but he's getting ready to retire. Or he just retired, actually. He's a buddy of my father-in-law's, and that's the guy who introduced me to like legitimate like archery hunting. And he was kind of getting out of it to a degree because he wasn't traveling at all, and he was really kind of hunting my father-in-law's farm, which not great deer there necessarily, and he was just kind of going out willy-nilly and just throwing caution to the wind and see what happens. He wasn't really hunting. He was sitting in the woods, you know, and he would admit that. And his son doesn't hunt, you know, or anything like that. And so when I came along and just got ate up with it, it was like, and he told me this and we talked about it, it just ignited the fire back in him, where it was like to see someone else that he could kind of impart what he's learned over 50 years of being in the woods, to have someone to kind of share that with, just got him super excited again. And at like 60, whatever he was, 60, 59 or 58, 59, whenever we first kind of met and started hanging out and doing that stuff, he all of a sudden like started going to Ohio with me on travel hunts. He goes out by himself. Yeah, he goes out by himself now, like, cause I'll usually go to a different state. We try to link up once in a while, but now he'll go out by himself. And the first year we traveled together, I killed this piece of public in Ohio. I killed a good Pope and Young 10 point on whatever it was. I think it was like November 6th, maybe. And he was running into a lot of pressure. And I was like, man, I'm seeing multiple bucks every day. You know, I was like, you should just go up, get into the same tree. I was like, I guarantee you'll see a buck. Well, he goes up the next day, gets in the same tree, and kills his best archery buck of his life. You know, that's all. And I, of course, was stoked. He called me. I ran up there. I basically drugged the deer out at Mach 10. Like, I was just so fired up. Like, he didn't have a chance. Like, I just grabbed that deer and took off, you know. But before that, you know, this is the cool part about hunting when I say igniting that fire, not to get all mushy, but like, we were up there and, you know, his sister had passed away that year and stuff like that. And his dad passed away not long before that. And so he just kind of had a rough kind of stretch, and he was getting to share all this stuff with me that he didn't think he was ever going to get a chance to share this with somebody. Right. You know what I mean? And not too proud to admit it, we shed a tear together up there. You know what I mean? Because I knew it meant that much to him. You know what I mean? It meant that much to me that he was willing to share what he knows with me. And I mean, that's an unbreakable bond that we'll have the rest of our life. You know what I mean? We still talk like he's my uncle. That's how I kind of treat him. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, that's what it's all about. I mean, I tell everybody, I mean, even when you and I text about deer hunting and stuff, you know, privately, I mean, the only dumb question, man, and I firmly believe this is the one you don't ask. Mm-hmm. It's lit a fire into me in the archery. Cause I mean, I've told you before, I mean, I quit working for archery season, you know, when I was young, when I first got out of the Marine Corps, I'd work from January 2nd to October 1st, and I was done.
Right.
I mean, I didn't care where I was working, what was going on. Quit.
Right.
And then I got into hound hunting and kind of got ate up with it. Mm-hmm. And I still love it. I mean, I think it's the one of the greatest things there is, and to get kids involved and just party hunt and social hunt. But, you know, I'm going to slow down on the hound hunting because I want to focus more on deer hunting from like this fall coming up from 2022. I'm really going to focus on archery hunting, and not just hunting in southern West Virginia and trying to, you know, harvest one deer. I'm going to try to really step my game up, because watching Brody, it's kind of lit like into it now, and like he wants to archery hunt. I mean, we still have our dogs and he loves our dogs, but like he wants to bow hunt.
Yeah.
Instead of going out and running the hounds.
Right.
And I think that as a father, and this is for me, it's just my opinion, that, you know, I want to focus on whatever he's focused on. And it's kind of lit a fire into me, so that I don't push him, but I'm going to do everything in my power and will to keep him interested.
Right. Yeah. I mean, there's always a
in
good,
it
there's
because
always a,
my
there's, I was just going to say, there's always a good saying that, you know, you should never force your kids to be into what you're into. You should always be super into what they're into, you
yeah,
know, and just like, and wherever the passion lies, just make sure you fuel that, you know what I
yeah,
mean? Because that's whatever that thing is, that's the thing they're going to, are willing to excel at, you know?
yeah. And I mean, he plays his sports too, and I help him with whatever I can there. But I just think hunting something that he's going to be able to do way past any sports that he plays. He's not
Yeah.
going to go professional or any shit like that. I mean, and my thing is that if I know my kid's hunting, then I ain't hunting my kid.
Right. A lot of truth to that.
It's in this world today, it's just crazy, and these kids get exposed to so much stuff.
Yeah.
So that's a big focus of mine. But I mean, we had a great season, and he learned a lot. I learned a lot. We had a great time together, which is more important to me than anything.
Yeah.
I mean, kid cracks me up with some of the stuff that they ask and say, and but it's the greatest thing in the world.
Yeah. So let me ask you this, man. I have two questions for you. The first one is, so you talking about him cracking you up. Like, what's the one thing that you think back on, like during the season, that he asked you where you were like, that either you were stumped or you were like, man, where did you come up with that?
Well, it's not like he asks some questions, and he's a pretty intelligent kid, but where he gets me is he mocks me all the time. He impersonates me, and he won't let me. He's not exactly totally used to the camera. Like he doesn't care whether he's on camera or not, and that's cool. But like I won't have the camera rolling, and he'll be impersonating me about doing an interview or something like that, and he's damn near got me down to a T. Because he didn't grow up where I grew up, so he doesn't have that strong accent, but he puts his acting accent on, and he gets real excited and stuff, and so he impersonates me all the time.
Yeah, you don't get all excited now, do you? No, I'm just kidding, man. I saw that video. I saw that video of the buck you killed this year. Just like you said, you might have scared every turkeys hadn't gobbled in like a year. Where that was at, man. You scared every deer out of the county with that one.
And tell you the truth, Clint, I didn't even care, buddy, because that was the third week of December, and from the time that I went to Indiana at the Public Land Challenge, till then, I mean, I hunted hard. I mean, I think the only days that I missed was days that we couldn't get the camera out because of weather. Yeah. I mean, the Public Land Challenge was exactly what it's meant to be. It is going in blind, not getting information from Warb and them until, 3 or 4 days, 5 days before, and you're going in blind somewhere and trying to find a deer on public. And I learned a lot. It's the same thing when I was in Missouri the year before. It just doesn't hunt the same as what I'm used to hunting.
Yeah.
And I think I overthink it when I really do. I mean, we saw some deer. We had some trouble a couple days. I had some trouble getting across creeks on the public, and so it was I spent a whole lot of time scouting, and I really think that you ought to just go in and hunt and scout while you're hunting instead of hunting while you scout.
Yeah, no, I definitely want to. Yeah, it does. I definitely want to talk to you about that because I jotted a couple things down that I wanted to cover, like just during the course of our conversation, and that's something I want to kind of pick because I know you and I were texting kind of like leading up to that, Yeah. But before we jump into that, you were mentioning, Brody getting super into it's kind of lit this fire, and you want to kind of up your game, and so my question really was like as you were saying that, it was just. You're pretty hardcore about it already. You know what I mean? So, like, what does that look like for you? Like, what are the plans or the goals?
Well, goal for me is we're not these national travelers to go and hunt 10, 15 states. That's not me. What I mean is I'm gonna focus on West Virginia. I'm gonna focus on Ohio, Kentucky. I'm definitely those three states are going to be a major focus because of the way the seasons come in.
Mm-hmm.
And if I can get back out to Indiana because it's such a short drive for me,
Mm-hmm.
I definitely feel like what I learned in Indiana this fall, I think I can have success. What I learned at the Public Land Challenge, I think I can go back to those areas and find success this fall.
Right.
But I just, I think for me and us at the Untamed, I think that, our thing is not going to be trying to go to states for 7 or 10 days at a time and kill a deer. It's hard enough to kill a deer in southern West Virginia.
Yeah.
And I think if we take people on that ride and let them experience what we're going through that season, that's good enough to hunt in West Virginia.
Mm-hmm.
And if I can find success in West Virginia, then, whatever order it comes in, but I'm just going to focus on our region.
Right.
And I didn't even get to make it to Ohio this year because, my knee hindered me a lot.
Yeah, for sure.
But that's kind of going to be my focus. As bad as it, I'll probably catch grief from viewers and listeners, but I'm probably not going to hound hunt as much.
Right.
I'm still going to make our trip out west and to mountain lion hunt, but for the bear hunting, I'm not going to. Used to, I'd let bear hunting interrupt deer season.
Mm-hmm.
And this year I'm going to let deer hunting interrupt bear season.
Right. And hey, you have a place in Eastern PA. If you if you want
well, I talk with Bo, man. I do want to try the big woods.
Yeah.
Up in PA.
Yeah, he's got some, there's big woods out, of course, out by him, with the Alleghenies and stuff like that. And then in Eastern PA on the opposite side, headed up toward like New York, there's another basically huge section of big woods that you can kind of get into. And that's where I've been spending a lot of my time. I think I sent you some trail camera pictures of a couple of those.
I just want to focus. Like I still got my points in Iowa. I think that I can draw, a real good unit out there this year. If I want to, I know I can get a muzzleloader tag. Mm-hmm. And I got my points in Kansas. I just don't know if I want to do that this year. I really just want to concentrate on. If we have the chance and get invited back to the PLC, I'll definitely do that with those guys because I love sharing camp with Warb and them, and it's just a good trip.
Yeah,
and it's a damn challenge.
Oh yeah, for sure. The Iowa trip, man, I should be able to draw not this year. I should be able to draw again, not this year, but next. So if you go out that year, let me know. We might be able to draw the same.
That's probably what I'm going to try to do, Clint, because I really want to just focus on this region of these 4 or 5 states within West Virginia and around West Virginia that I can get to within 4 or 5 hours.
Right. Yeah. Because if you did that, I've got some intel on a piece that I've hunted out there before. And I've got some local buddies out there too, that trail cameras could be hung and checked and stuff like that. You know what I mean? To kind of help make game plans from afar. Yeah, so to speak. And I've killed out there once on that particular piece, and I know it's Iowa, so there's giants there, but I know of a few specific giants that are around there. One particularly that I missed. I just did a podcast with a buddy of mine that I met while I was out there, and I missed a really good 8-point. I've told this story before, so I'll make it quick. It was like 145-inch 8-point, something like that. I missed him twice on that trip. And
you tell me that.
And I don't know if it's the same deer. It's been about 3 years, and I guessed that deer to be about 3.5 when I saw him. And so my buddy I was talking to, because he hunts in that general area, he killed a 160 and some change this year. And he's like, hey, and when we got done podcasting, he's like, hey, I told him exactly where. He's like, where'd you see that deer at? And I told him where, because when I met him in the parking lot, he gave me a few pointers, near some water, and I kind of went and scouted it, and kind of that's where I ended up spending some time. And I told him where I was set up, and I missed that deer. He's like, man, I have a camera. He's like maybe 100 yards plus or minus from where you were set up and you saw him. I'm like, really? He's like, yeah. He's like, and I have a giant 8-point on camera. Like the past 2 years, he's like, but this year he's a mega. And so he sent me a picture of him. Like the frame looks exactly the same. It looks like a 6-year-old deer. So it'd be the right age. And the thing with his brow tines is they didn't come straight up. Like they kind of slanted back off his head. Right. And that deer has the same, like his brows weren't huge. Everything else, he had long tines, but his brows weren't super long. The brows look almost identical and they're kind of straight back, almost like his hair is slicked back. And Josh, if he's not, he's probably 160-inch 8-point.
Oh man.
Now, like just like a freak. You know what I mean? I'll send you a picture when we're done. But that's a long way of saying if we went out at the same time, I got some intel on a spot that we can certainly tag team on, which would be cool.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about sharing camp anyway.
Yeah, and I got the rut wagon, dude. Yeah.
Yeah, it's probably a lot better than what I sleep in.
Nice. Well, man, I want to pivot to that hunting land or public land challenge and talk about that a little bit because I know we kind of chatted as you were kind of leading up to getting ready to travel, for this season and stuff like that. And you mentioned that it's, it certainly is what they intend it to be, which is, a challenge. But what was the hardest part? What was the hardest part of that particular trip or hunting that particular piece?
Well, for me, my game plan, so Zach and I were going out, and we were hunting together, and then Kirk and our intern were going to hunt together. My game plan from the get-go was I was going to hit small tracts of land. That's what I wanted to. I wasn't going to focus on because, I mean, they're in southern Indiana. I mean, there's just monster tracts. I mean, thousands and thousands of acres of public. So I did some, I talked to you about the e-scouting, talked with Bo Martonic, because I don't do a lot of, I'd rather just have boots on the ground. I mean, I look at the maps and see some saddles and stuff and that I like, and I'll go in. But when I went out there, I was focused on 500 acres and less. Mm-hmm. And so I had these pins dropped on these small plots. But then the first couple of days that I'm out there, I'm running around like a madman checking these because I think we got out there on the 28th. It was a Thursday maybe. Mm-hmm. And I went out Thursday evening and checked the parking lots out to see if there was any company. And so I marked off a couple of places from how many vehicles were at the parking places, and then put green checks on ones that didn't have any parking. But then what was so hard was, I wasn't even thinking, and I scouted those areas and found some sign. We even bumped a what we think's a large deer. I mean, because it was pouring the rain, and there was a saddle that I was wanting to check out. And in that saddle, I mean, I'm telling you what, it looked like you just stuck a plow at this scrape. I mean, it was dry, and I mean, it was pouring the rain, and it was dry. I mean, and we saw a deer running off.
Right. So that was freshy fresh on that one.
Yeah, and so we were like, okay, this is a good area, but it was like a 500-acre lot, but there was only one access point. Well, 500 acres is pretty big when you're trying to hike to the back.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
This is the first weekend on my knee and actually pushing it. But what happened is not me thinking, well, come Friday, Saturday, Sunday, you got weekend warriors out. So your parking situation changed in 12 hours.
Yeah.
On Thursday evening when nobody's hunting, then come Friday, there's vehicles. Mm-hmm. And then you're going and running and checking and we've got down to 40-acre parcels.
Mm-hmm.
And, we're there and checking and I mean, there was standing corn and standing beans everywhere, on private outside the public. And you'd think that you'd find that on that transition line. And we were out there, for Halloween and, historically, Ohio, Western Kentucky, Illinois,
Mm-hmm.
Indiana, you want to be in the woods on Halloween.
Yeah.
And, there wasn't finding any sign on that transition coming out of ag to the woods. Very little acorns everywhere that we hunted. And I just wasn't successful at finding the right. I don't even know if it was the right parcel, because there was deer and sign in some of those parcels, but it seemed like everybody else that was hunting at the PLC was hunting large tracts, and they were traveling, they were walking a long ways, but
Mm-hmm.
they were finding acorns.
Yeah.
And if they found acorns, then they was in the deer.
Yeah. It's crazy, man. Like it's such a fickle thing as far as like when you're traveling like that and you're going somewhere where you don't have any information. It's one of my favorite things to do, but it's hard. Like it's just sometimes you eat the bear, sometimes the bear eats you, and on those trips, you know what I mean? It's like you could be, because you don't have intimate knowledge and you don't really know the pressure situation 100%. You also don't know like what other influences are around there 100%. You know what I mean? Like you just have such limited information of everything, where you could be 200 yards off and just completely out the game. You know what I mean? Like,
Well, I just think that my mistake is I would probably go out and hunt those small parcels again, but I would go in and I'd sneak in instead of scouting in,
mm-hmm.
and I would go in and hunt, and I'd scout from above, because I think my mistake was on these small parcels was I'd bust into them, and I'm not running, but I'm in there scouting. So if I'm going into a 100-acre lot and I'm scouting that 100 acres, well, by the time I figure out where I want to hang or set up in that 100-acre lot, I've done busted everything out of there.
Yeah.
It's not that big of a lot, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So that was my mistake of, if I'm going to hunt small parcels, I want to go in, sneak in like I'm going to hunt, and get up and hunt. And then I'll scout while I'm hunting. If I have to move from that point to another point on that parcel, then I'm going to move from a hunting spot to a hunting spot.
Right.
I'm not going to move to a scouting spot.
Right.
I'll scout while I'm sitting there.
Right. That's 100% kind of how I approach, especially small pieces, and that's why I prefer kind of larger pieces, because that small piece, it's like if you make one mistake, it's probably done. You know what I mean? You know, it's like, and then you got to basically be on to the next. And so I kind of follow the same thing, where it's like, I want to hunt that piece as opposed to like scout it necessarily. Now, a lot of times when I go out, it's like, I'll purposefully kind of go places where I know I'm going to have big pieces. Like the place in Iowa is a pretty big chunk. The place in northeastern PA, big chunk. Ohio, big chunk. You know, where I went in Kansas, lots of places to roam. You know, and it's because of that reason where it's like, I don't know a whole lot, so I know I'm going to have to walk a lot. You know, and I try to look at my map and I try to figure out like, these are the places I'm going to kind of speed to, because I think the deer are going to be here, and if they're not there, then I'm just on to the next spot. But it's so big that if I make a mistake, I'm just going to go on to the next spot anyway, and that was my plan anyhow, if I didn't find any sign. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I did it in Missouri and was able to get into deer and stuff like that. And so I think you're right. It's always, I kind of, what helped me a lot whenever I started hunting out of state and going blind a lot was I followed the teachings of John Eberhart pretty religiously, because that's one of his big things is, you know, he calls it freestyle hunting or freelance hunting. I don't remember exactly what it's called. I think it's freestyle hunting, where you're going in blind, and he has a methodology about how he goes about it, you know, especially whenever you're talking about small parcels versus big parcels. And that was really kind of how I learned to do it. And the first time I really executed it when I was in Iowa, and it was a lot of scouting, finding a setup, walking 3-4 miles, whatever it had to be, find hot signs, set up, hunt it. As long as the wind was right the next morning, leave all my stuff there. Now I know how to get in and out of there because I did it in daylight at least once. You know what I mean? So now I can get in the dark. Yep. You know, get into the tree, hunt till 10:30, 11 o'clock, get down, go find the next spot for the next evening, and just kind of continue doing that until I started either seeing the sign or seeing the deer that I wanted to see. You know, and that was basically how I would break it down. And it's almost impossible to do it on a small spot. It's almost like you have a 200-acre farm. You know what I mean? It's like you got to know where the spots are at. You know?
Yeah. Yeah, and so that's what I ran into, and then, and I was flip flopping with Zach. So I'd hunt one day, he'd hunt one day. So he was checking place, you know, he was hunting spots that he had e-scouted. And we had an opportunity one evening on a small 8-point, and he opted to pass. I mean, that's not the deer that, I mean, public land challenge or not, but that's not the deer that we're looking for. Mm-hmm. And then the last day, John Lewis with the hunting club, mm-hmm. he had killed a deer.
Okay.
And he said, Josh, he said, you really ought to go down here and try it. He said, I'm seeing a lot of deer. And I said, well, I said, all right. And it was a river bottom. And I went in there and ground hunted that last day. And we about got it done. I mean, we got on a, 135, 140 inch 8-point. Mm-hmm. And about got it done on the ground, which was, when you're out there and you're hunting on the ground and getting on deer, and it's, we didn't kill anything, but it was a successful hunt.
Yeah, for sure. I watched that video too. And it was one of those things where it was, you were at the right place, just needed to be in the right spot. You know what I mean? Like you were just,
we were on that deer for, about 4 hours mm-hmm. that morning. And when we finally, that doe was 25 yards when she popped out. Mm-hmm. And we heard him in the brush grunting. And it's like, he's going to come out of the brush and just kind of bump her. Right. And I'm going to collapse his lungs. I'm going to hammer him. I mean, we knew it was going to happen. And dude, I've never seen a deer. I mean, he came out of the brush full speed. And my God, took her 80 yards from us and stopped and locked down right there with her for 15, 20 minutes. Mm-hmm. And then he took off again. And then we went back into the timber to try to get back on him, which we never did. But I mean, I really thought it was going to happen. And that deer just came out, super pumped up. And he had been chasing her all day, and we'd been chasing him. Mm-hmm. And it just didn't work out. But I mean, it was a fun hunt. And I mean, we just about got it done.
Yeah. Who was I talking to? I was talking to some buddies last night, and, we were just kind of talking about when you do these, whether you're hunting high pressure states, I know West Virginia's got plenty of pressure. PA certainly does, New York, Michigan, stuff like that. Sometimes you just have to kind of reframe what success is. And I think you really have to whenever you're doing like these out of state DIY freestyle travel hunts where you're going in with like a wing and a prayer, essentially. You're going in with your woodsmanship and your savvy and what you know. But as far as like having any type of historical information to base anything off of, like you just don't, And I always say like, almost have to reframe success, especially on that first year where just getting into deer and finding deer and getting an opportunity, like that's a successful hunt. That's a successful trip on those types of hunts, in my opinion, because your strategy was right. You had the deer beat. He was just thinking with a different part of his biology that day. You know what I mean? That was gonna rule the day.
Yeah. I mean, and I think they were rutting while they were out there. Obviously, he was rutting hard, but that was the first day that we saw like rutting activity. So we might have got out there a little bit early,
right?
But it doesn't make any difference. I mean, we still learned a lot. I mean, obviously, when you go on these trips, you're always wanting to have confidence that you're going to kill something.
Yeah, for sure.
I've been skunked the last 2 years that I've left the Ohio Valley region. From West Virginia, Ohio. I mean, going out to Missouri, got skunked, learned to pot load.
Yeah.
And then got skunked last year.
Yeah.
At some point, I'll quit overthinking it and just go out there.
I had the same thing. Missouri was one of those things, kind of similar situation you had in Indiana, where I managed. It was like a 5 or 6 days I was in Missouri. I had 3 encounters in those 6 days, but 2 of them.
Yeah.
But 2 of them, I mean, they were. I mean, it looked like Tyreek Hill and the Kansas City Chiefs running a 40-yard sprint. You know what I mean? Just hauling it, just getting it. You know what I mean? Like where I was in the right spot, but the circumstances just didn't play out. And that's that time of year. I mean, that's why whenever you talk to guys like, I don't know, like my buddy Greg Litzinger, I know you guys ran into each other at ATA. That's why that guy loves hunting early October and hates the rut. Because like he wants to know where that deer is going to be and know that whenever he knows where that deer is going to be, when it gets up, it's going to walk to him. You know what I mean? And he's going to have a shot. He's changing his tune a little bit because he's gone out and hunted with Johnny Stewart out in Western PA and had some good opportunities with some big deer and killed a good deer there, I guess 2 years ago.
2 years, yeah.
Yeah. So he kind of is coming around. He's like, I don't know. He's like, maybe I am a rut hunter. I don't know.
Well, it's all. I mean, we talk about it all the time, but I mean, you got to continuously just change what you're doing depending on what the deer are doing.
Yeah.
I mean, I like hunting on the ground just about every day during the rut.
Yeah, that's something.
That way I can move with them.
Yeah, that's something that was a big learning curve for me in Kansas, and I started kind of adding in Pennsylvania, and I feel like more and more I just liked the ability to just pick up and move, you know what I mean? Like I didn't have like a ton of stuff with me. It was just like, oh, let's go over there. It was just like, all right, cool. Grab my bow, start going. And there wasn't any.
Big deer.
What's that?
Y'all were on big deer.
Yeah, we had some.
You had a couple of good encounters.
Yeah, I had a good encounter. Like the first night I was there, I left my setup just a little bit early and saw a deer that was in the 160s and saw a couple other ones that were in that caliber, and I was at full draw on one that was probably in the 50s or whatever the next to last day I was there. And Chad, of course, killed that. He scored that one out, and it's just a little over 170 is what he killed. So yeah, I mean it was a good trip all the way around. I mean we should have filled 2 tags, just didn't come to fruition. But yeah, the more and more I get a chance to do it, the more and more I like the ability to just kind of to move. Now it's harder. Like your setups have to be more on point. Your wind has to be more on point. When you draw, it has to be more on point. Like all those things are magnified because you can't cheat anything because you're not off the ground. You're at eye level.
Right.
It's like, and so that's the learning curve. For me is really that. But I've even kind of changed, and I've talked about this before. But I've even kind of changed in the dates that I really like to hunt. Like I used to really like that. Beginning of November kind of time frame. I still like that when I go out of state because I need a little luck when I'm out of state, because I'm not as familiar. So I need that chance if they're going to move, but at home, I'm really starting to like that October lull time frame. Like I've had my best encounters the past 2 years during the time frame where nobody wants to hunt because they say the deer's not moving. And that's actually the past 2 years when I've actually had my best encounters was like somewhere between like the 13th and like the 20th ish of October, and actually in the mornings as opposed to evenings.
Yeah. Somebody asked me down at ATA about rut and pre-rut and post-rut. And my big thing is I try to give myself as many, whether you're a weekend warrior, you're a daily hunter, or whatever. But if you give yourself enough opportunities of being in the woods, if you give yourself enough days in the woods, you are going to get presented an opportunity. Unless you're just hunting where the deer ain't. I mean, you got to be hunting where the deer are.
Right.
That's number one. But you're going to get paid off and get an opportunity. That's how I feel about it. I mean, the harder you work, it will, at some point you'll have an opportunity.
Yeah. It's funny because like I 100% agree with you, but then you see guys like Andy May, which is almost the opposite, where it's like, it seems like every time that guy walks into the woods, yeah, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
it's like, and so I think it really kind of comes down to like, what is your style? How do you hunt and how often can you, you know what I mean? Because, for a guy like me, this year I felt like, even though I didn't fill a tag in PA, I felt like this year was the year that I've hunted the most kind of had the most strategic approach. Because almost every sit I had, I was having encounters, and I was having encounters with deer that I knew that were there in areas where I thought they would be. Even the one spot that was a completely new spot, and I hunted it on a flyer because the wind was wrong for every other place for me that day. I went and hunted a morning in like October 13th or 15th or something like that. And a shooter that I knew was in the area came through, didn't get a shot. And then a second buck came through that I passed, and that was a strategic kind of move where I was like, I'm going to go hunt this because I like that spot. I like that setup. And I've had a feeling that would probably be good this time of year. It was close to some doe bedding and stuff like that. And so I hunted fewer times this year in Pennsylvania than I had in past years. But my quality sits were a lot higher. You know what I mean? Than I've had in years past. And so I almost feel like it depends on the time that you have. It's almost that old saying for the stock market, right? It's not, for some guys, it's time in market, and for other guys, it's timing the market, right? Yep. And time in market, like you're saying, 9 times out of 10 is the best approach for everybody, right? You just put your money in and just let it sit and let it grow for a long period of time. Just stay in. Ride the wave, the ebbs and flows of the ups and downs, and you'll come out better on the other end, right?
Yep.
But then there are those guys who can watch the stock market and got the funds to play with it, the right amount of funds, that they're going to time it. And they're going to see something drop, they're going to buy, it's going to shoot back up, they're going to sell, and they're going to make a pant load of money. You know what I mean? So you have to just kind of be honest with, like, which guy are you? You know what I mean? Like, which approach can you do?
Yeah, I mean, I'm the grinder.
Mm-hmm.
That's Andy. I guarantee Andy kills a lot of stuff.
Oh my, yeah.
I got to talk to Andy out at ATA face to face for the first time. I mean, but Andy puts the work in.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
yeah.
He's not going in. He's not going in these spots blind.
Yeah.
I mean, he puts the work in before he goes in and kills.
Yeah.
And I don't do a lot of that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going in and hunting most of the time.
Right.
And when I scout, I'm scouting behind glass.
Right.
Yeah. I do use a few cell phone cameras and to just kind of see if there's anything in the area.
Right.
But most of the time, I mean, these guys that kill, I mean, they're not going out. I mean, they're not going out and just killing.
Yeah.
I mean, they're working. I mean, Andy, you can tell by talking to him, by listening to him. I mean, he knows what he's doing.
Oh yeah. Oh man. Yeah. I mean, it's the way I think about Andy specifically is the deer he's going to kill 3 years from now. He's killing him in this off season.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's he plays such a long, not all the time, but he plays such a long game of understanding and knowing whenever a spot's going to be right. And he knows the deer's there because he's got the intel on that deer and he's watched him. He may have had an encounter with him in the past and he's filing all that away in his memory bank. And then next year will pop up and he's like, northeast wind, 10-degree temp drop. He's usually in this area around this time of year. I'm going to go extract him. Like, you know what I mean? It's that surgical, but it's like, to your point, there was a lot of work that went into that one sit,
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, those kind of guys, I mean, hell, I got a respect for them, but I don't have the mentality.
Mm-hmm.
I like just having boots on the ground and learning what you learn while you hunt.
Yeah. I actually do better that way too, because I almost feel like I hunt more free that way. And I don't get hung up when I make a mistake, because I'm just kind of I'm not flying by the seat of my pants. Like, there's a method to the madness, but there's an expectation that because I'm kind of pushing the envelope a little bit, that I could make a mistake. The deer could be where I don't think he's going to be, or the deer could be not back to bed quite yet whenever I walk in there, or whatever the case is. But I kind of know that walking into it. So if I do make a mistake, I don't get hung up on it. It doesn't ruin it for me. I'm just like, okay, I'm on to the next one,
right.
And
that's right.
I have a hard time, going back to our buddy Greg, he makes fun of me because he's like, dude, you go out of state. He's like, drop you off wherever, you end up finding deer. He's like, you end up either killing one or like at full draw on one or whatever. He's like, and in Pennsylvania, he's like, your home state. He's like, I feel like you just get too in your head. He's like, you overthink yourself. He's like, you overanalyze it. And my buddy Tate that got me into bow hunting, the old timer, he would say, I'm trying to pick the fly shit out of the pepper.
Yeah.
That's his saying. You know what I mean? And I think there's some truth to that, where it's like I'm trying to thread the needle so fine at home because I think I got it all figured out that I'm actually overthinking and overcomplicating things.
Yeah, I can see that. I mean, I do it in West Virginia. I mean, I don't think I struggled this year. I just couldn't find when I was hunting on the ground, I just couldn't find the deer. I mean, I was seeing deer, and then Bo came down and hunted, I think, like the 13th through the 20th, 14th to the 21st, and like that was the hottest week in southern West Virginia this year. I mean, there was deer, and we had, I think, 3 encounters.
Wow.
That week with good bucks, and Bo had his first, like serious consecutive day go around with ground hunting, and he learned valuable lessons too, and when to pull back.
Yeah.
On the ground, because if you see the deer, I mean, you probably need to go ahead and get it back,
right?
And get one in him as soon as you can. We're not sitting and gawking,
right?
You know what I mean?
Yeah. No.
So we were seeing deer, and my buddies were killing deer, but I struggled to, and then after the rut, man, it went just dead.
Yeah.
It warmed up.
Mm-hmm.
And I still hunted. I mean, I was still in the glass trying to find deer. I'd kind of transitioned from focusing on glassing to hunting out of a saddle. Mm-hmm. I started climbing at that point, and then and it was just changing with what the deer were doing. And then my buddy Trace Boone, who is from down here, and he's just a mega giant killer here. Him and his whole damn family are. They are, man. They're just all a bunch of killers. And he had told me about a deer that he had, and in the area he had, and I was like, really? And I went up there, and it was just god awful thicket on a flat. But I mean, the pine trees were 8-9 inches thick, and I ended up hunting on the ground one evening and saw some deer, but it just wasn't a good set. I couldn't have shot any of them. And then I said, I'm gonna clear out one of these pine trees and get in the saddle and just hunt for a few days. And I think that we hunted 4 days, and then on the 5th day is when that buck came through.
Right. And that's the one thing that I like about how you hunt. And at some point I'd love to spend some time with you and just get behind glass with you. Cause that was, again, not just hunting from the ground when I was in Kansas, but it was also being comfortable relying on my glass. There's almost this feeling that I would have where we'd be sitting in a truck glassing, or we'd be sitting out somewhere in a CRP field glassing, or wherever we happen to be. Sometimes it was from the truck. There's a lot of driving, just glassing from the truck out there. And I would almost feel guilty. Like I wasn't grinding. Like I wasn't, you know what I mean? Cause I wasn't putting the boot leather to the ground and just running like a, Cherokee trying to run one down. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so it was really hard. Like I would get nervous about it because I just wanted to go out and hunt. But like in those situations and in those setups, the best thing you can do is get a visual on one so you know what the game plan is and you can make a play. And that's the one thing, like for your game, what I have a lot of respect for is your ability to do that in the area that you're doing it in, because it's a lot of guys think of it for like a Western approach, whether it's, hunting plains whitetails or if you're going out West and you're hunting elk or muleys or whatever the case is. But there's not a lot of people that I know of that do that in mountain area like you do. And I know you're doing it a lot of times in like these old strip mine valley fields that are reclaimed and stuff like that, but still those places are steep, they're gnarly, and it ain't like you're picking them out of like a freaking bean field somewhere. You know what I mean? Like
no, it's not. But I mean, I'm telling you, anytime you have the luxury to sit in the truck and glass or put the spotting scope on the window and glass, I'm telling you right now, I take full advantage of it, and I don't have any guilt whatsoever. For anybody that thinks I'm cheating by doing that, right. So you shouldn't feel that way either, because the work really is in glassing them up, of finding, the you seeing their eye or seeing their nose or seeing a horn flicker. It's not easy to spot a buck bedded down in CRP.
Yeah.
But it takes time.
Right. When do you know when you're going to make a move? Right. Like, so.
Well, I'm gonna let the deer tell me.
Right. But so that's what I guess that's what I should ask is, what do they need to show you to tell you to make a move? Because I've seen plenty times, for example, the guys from Whitetail Adrenaline, they're running like crazy, and it's and there's times where they'll watch a deer and just watch him and be like, I ain't got to play. I'm going to come back tomorrow and watch him again. You know what I mean? And I'm always just curious, because Chad and I had, I forget what day, it might've been like the third day we were there. We were up on this kind of, oil tanks, glass in this, I think it was a millet field, and there was a CRP field with some draws that kind of connected to this other draw that went up into this, or drainage rather, that went up into this, like winter wheat field. Right. And we could see kind of part of the one side of the winter wheat field, but we could see a lot of the millet, and a fair amount of the CRP until you got over this crest. And we saw a bunch of does and stuff like that. And we thought we might have saw a young buck but those deer just kind of disappeared in the millet. And so we were like, you know what, let's run around. Let's go to the other side of the section. Cause there's, for anyone who doesn't know, like all those properties out there are basically like 1 mile sections, like 1 square mile essentially. Right. And so you just try to drive around the other section. This is all WEHA proper, walk-in access property. And, because those does kind of disappeared, we didn't see any bucks with them, but we were like, they might've been in that millet. We would have never seen them potentially. So we were like, let's go over the other side and glass and see if there's bucks with those does potentially. So we drive around and we get over there, and there's 2 bucks literally walking down the road toward us from like, I can see it from like a half mile away, like just walking toward us. So we stopped and jumped out of the truck, jumped up into the millet to kind of hide. And then all of a sudden those does blew out from behind us, because they were literally in the millet right where we were at. Right. They took off. And so now we're watching those other bucks and kind of figure out what they're going to do. Now, Chad made one of those big kind of like Whitetail Adrenaline full body decoys. He made one of those. He flashed it at those bucks and spooked them. They scared. They took off. And what we realized was one was actually a mule deer, because we were right next to a mule deer section. He bounded off, and the other one was a whitetail. He took off and bedded down in this draw, and we watched him kind of go bed. We lost him once we got into the draw, but the draw might have been 70 yards long and maybe 25 yards wide, maybe 50 yards wide at the widest. So it was skinny, you know what I mean? To where you could see the whole thing. We were glassing, but there were trees in the middle of it, and he went through and got on the back side of it. So we watched the horizon. We didn't see him come up out. So we assumed that he just got on the opposite side of those trees and bedded down on the edge, because the wind was it was blowing toward him, but it was kind of a crosswind. So we assumed he was probably laying to kind of catch the wind and kind of be able to see, right? That was kind of what we assumed his setup would be on the back side of that draw. And so we kind of crept through the CRP, got up there, set up the decoy, rattled. He never came. That was about, we weren't wanting to press the envelope. So we were maybe 75, 100 yards away, roughly on the edge of the CRP where the winter wheat kind of connected to it. So they were like, all right, well, he didn't show, so maybe we got to break his comfort zone. We got to get a little closer or something. So we moved a little closer. We got probably 50 yards away from where we thought he was bedded. Now, we still at this time are so close now, he could have blown out the backside. We would have never saw him, so there was a chance he wasn't there. So we got closer, got to about 50 yards, tucked in, rattled again, nothing. So we were like, man, he must have slipped us, and we just never saw him. So we were like, well, while we're here, let's scout and see if we can find like the beds. Cause through the glass, I could see a huge, community, like, signpost rub that was just destroyed. And the tree was pretty big. And it was just like, man, there's a huge rub in there. So let's go see what else is in there. So we walk in there, we get probably 25 yards from where we think he was bedded. And sure enough, we were exactly right where he was bedded. Like he was just bedded on the other side of those trees on the lip of that draw, and busted and blew out of there. Tons of scrapes in there. There was like 2 or 3 different beds he was using in there. And the learning lesson there was, because that was our first stalk on a whitetail, was that once we bedded him, we should have spent the rest of the day sitting there waiting for him to move and get up. Should have just sat and waited him out to show his cards, and then tried to come back in probably the next day.
Yeah, I mean, especially if you felt confident that he was bedded.
Mm-hmm.
You can wait to make a move, or if you didn't have sight of him though, right?
No, but where we were actually moving down to, the way the wind was, we could have, because there was 2 of us, we could have split up, and one person could have stayed on one side of the draw, and we could have slipped down on the other side and still had the wind to our advantage, but stayed behind the brush enough to where we could have glassed that other edge and had seen him. You know, and so we just, being a couple noobs at hunting on the ground and spotting and stalking whitetails, we just got all amped up, and when we were like, let's go kill him. That was, and it blew up in our face, where it's like, if we would have stopped and had done it before and just thought about it, it's like, man, there's 2 of him, or there's 2 of us, there's 1 of him.
Right.
Let's keep the wind in our favor. That's split up. Let's watch from each side. And just, even if we can't see him right away, he's going to eventually have to get up to stretch, take a piss, something. He's going to move. And it's just be sitting, waiting to watch, to catch where he's at. Because once we would have known for sure where he was bedded, he wouldn't have had line of sight to us on that other side of that draw. We could have slipped around the whole way around, like went back to the road to the truck, went all the way around, got into the top side of that winter wheat field, and came back in essentially from his north and set up on him, and been able to basically slip in as close as we would have needed to, and maybe shot him in the bed.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's always, I guess a tough call. I mean, sometimes I get caught up in the moment.
Mm-hmm.
That buck, Bo got on a monster 9.1 evening, and it was in the middle of the day. I mean, we had time.
Mm-hmm.
And well, I mean, it was 2:00 in the day. We had 3.5 hours of shooting light.
Mm-hmm.
But we lost, the biggest thing on the ground when you lose line of sight, it's a mystery. And you kind of sit back and say, hey, there's no way. And we were going down a big steep when this buck was coming across, and we were trying to intersect him and going to kind of play ambush with him. But when we got down there, we didn't know that we were passing that deer as he was coming up. Well, we got down there where we were at. Now, he didn't spook at the time because he was still a jag away from us. But I knew that deer from the terrain, he didn't go past us. And then we and man, he was being vocal. He was grunting right back at us. So he was close because we heard him.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, as soon as I heard him, I was like, Bo, he's got a bow. So I said, we got to go. So we had to go back up the mountain. And I was like, just you take the lead, take your time. I said, but we're going up these benches, and it's real thick. It's probably got 10 years growth on it. And, man, he got up and he looked, and man, that buck wasn't 30 yards from him. And he said, don't move. And I just, I was down the slope, so I didn't move. But I was like, and then probably 45 seconds went by, a minute, and we saw it buck jump onto the slope we were on. And he took off, and he just went 100 yards, and we watched him. We glassed him the rest of the evening, just meandering and getting in and out of these thickets. And Bo and I were talking that night, and he was like, I should have shot him, shouldn't I? And I was like, yeah, what did he do? He said, well, when I poked up, he kind of glanced over and saw movement, but we were still sitting like over the hill. And I said, well, what did he do? He said, well, he kind of poked up and then he went back to making a scrape. And I was like, could you have shot? He's like, yeah. I was like, well, that's when you just let the deer, I kind of let the deer tell me at that point, when you lose line of sight, it's like I told you, it's a mystery. Like we're going after that deer and going to try to find him down in there. But a lot of times, if I know where a deer's traveling, there's a lot of times I'll make a move on the ground when the deer's moving. I won't necessarily wait until he's bedded. There's a lot of times that if I see from a distance that there's multiple bucks chasing a doe, I might go right there to that spot and wait. Because most likely, before the end of the day, there's going to be bucks coming through there.
Right. Yeah, and I watched you do that in one of the videos. It was earlier in the season before you killed your buck. That you glassed. I think you glassed one up, but you were he was coming up out of this. I think it was out of one of those.
Out of a valley field.
Out of a valley field, yeah. And he was crossing a road, and you got hung out to dry because he was coming across, and you were like, he's going to cross over here. And sure as shit, if he didn't cross straight where you said you were trying to basically get to.
Man, and I kept on telling Hagen, I said, we need to get over here on the left side. That deer is going to come over here. But your mindset when you're caught up, it's like you want to be, instead of where the deer's going, you want to be where the deer's at.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And like I knew I needed to get off there and go over there in that thicket. And that deer would have, I'd have been in the ball game. But once he got in the thicket, it's kind of like, hey, let's go back down here in glass. This deer he's in the area. We're going to see him again. We just got to give it time. We saw that deer again the next morning.
Okay.
Of course, he was on the prowl. They're hard to catch up with.
Yeah. But, yeah. I mean, you had that one pegged, man. If you would have been over there on that left-hand side, you would have basically been able to rodeo that. You would have been able to rodeo that guy.
Yeah. I mean, he ran right over top of us. And, when you're in the ghillie suits, I mean, they don't know what you are. Yeah.
And that was the one thing, again, in Kansas, I was using a ghillie suit. And the last encounter I had that I was drawn on that deer, I was in a ghillie jacket in the middle of CRP naked. Like I had a heads up decoy out in front of me that I was using just to try to take the attention off of me.
Yeah.
And I had a doe at 5 yards behind me. Just, I could hear her breathing behind me, chewing on something, you know what I mean? Like, and I was like, I just wanted her to get gone. Cause I actually got down there. I'd never been in there before. I just wanted daylight to crack. I set up there just to get through daylight so I could glass a bottom so I could figure out where I wanted to go set up. Before I ever got a chance to do that, that deer comes in from behind me. And as soon as she moseyed off, I did a quick scan before I got up. Then I just saw tines coming, and then at that point, then I was stuck and snort wheezed him in and he circled downwind. I didn't have any wind and my thermals were pulling to this little low spot. And that's where he walked to. And I could see the front of his tines, the front of his feet and the tip of his nose. And that was it. I just needed 2 or 3 more steps, but
yeah, it's, when you're in the shadows and have the concealment, I mean, it's happened to us. It happens to me all the time when I'm sitting glassing. I'll have deer walk right behind me, right in front of me, and they're just browsing on by. I mean, it's cool as hell. It's not those big bucks. I mean, we've had those big buck encounters, but I mean, they work. I mean, like they just it's good concealment. I mean, I love hunting out of them. But you have to change, your game. I mean, I learned that this year, changing strategy. I mean, there's nothing I'd rather do than hunt on the ground. and kill one on the ground. But I just didn't have, other than Indiana. I had a couple opportunities. I never had an opportunity in southern West Virginia that I pulled back on. I could have pulled back on one. Mm-hmm. I was on deer. Yeah. Now, I did that when Bo was down. We got on a buck, and it was pouring the rain. And I was like, well, let's go out here and see if we can find it. And God forbid, man, we go out there with no bow, no nothing. And I find that buck, and he's 30 yards.
Serious.
130, 140 inch 8-point. And like, I'm running back to the truck, and I grab my bow, and I'm looking for my release, and I guess my release fell out of my pocket at my last glassing point. And so I grabbed Bo's release. It's set up for a right-hander. And I'm left-handed. So I go out there and I turn it upside down. So, man, I said, I don't know if it's going to work. I said, it's going to work, dude. It's good. You got to improvise. Ended up, we saw 4 different bucks, man, running that same doe through there. Of course, we didn't get a shot, but it was a great encounter.
Right.
But it was like bonehead mistake.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not going out there with a bow.
Yeah.
70 yards from the truck. I mean, it just stuff that you get used to doing, then you get lackadaisical.
Well, it's like we were talking about at the beginning, taking things for granted. You know what I mean? Like things that you don't even think about anymore because you've been doing it so long. But you ended up getting into a tree there whenever you killed that buck that you killed. And that tree was like, you were testing the laws of gravity in that thing.
Yeah, I mean, we got in that tree, but let me tell you, man, I love hunting those pines, because when I got in it, 3 or 4 days before I started hunting out of it, I got in and trimmed it out, but I didn't throw the branches down. I stacked them all on the branches around us.
Okay, yeah,
to give us that dark cover from the bottom, and there was a trail, not 5 or 6 yards from the tree, that we had, I don't know, half a dozen does. I mean, they came right below us on this trail. And then, that day that buck came through, he was on that same trail, and I didn't understand until I got out of the tree. But, he veered off the trail, and it ended up, there was an autumn olive bush there in the middle of that trail that those does had tunneled below it, but he wasn't going to come through it because it was an obstruction. So
right.
He veered out, but there was so many things I could talk about and learn from that hunt, from the one pin site.
Yeah, that was a good one.
That's the first time that's happened to me. I'm usually really good, and I won't change. Everybody's asking me, "Are you getting rid of your one pin?" No, I'm not. I'm going to continue to hunt with a one pin.
Yeah.
Because it makes me settle that pin on that animal when I shoot, and when there's 3 or 4 or 5 pins out there on my sight picture.
Yeah.
I just think that I can put all 5 pins on there and let her fly, and I'm gonna hit it, and it makes me concentrate. So
yeah, I'm the same way. I prefer my one pin for that reason. But it was crazy because like you had your pin set for 50 from shooting in the yard the day before, I think, flung it right over his back, and then it was a little while later he ended up circling back sometime later.
He took off, and of course I was pissed off. I was
cuss the bow, cuss the tree, cuss the
oh yeah. I was pretty flipping mad at myself, because it's just a terrible mistake to make. And then you wanting that, and from the time I saw that deer to the time I shot, when he was at 22 yards and I missed, I mean, it was 15 seconds. And that's what you're hunting for. You might lay on these hunts daylight to dark, and all you're wanting is that 15-second opportunity.
Yep.
And I had it, and it blew up in my face. So I was pretty aggravated, but it was I think it was 10:25, 10:30 in the morning when that deer come through, and I shot and missed, and I ended up shooting him at 11:40.
Okay. Yeah. Like an hour and a half later, roughly, came back through.
Yeah. And I saw a deer coming back, and the sun was shining from that side, and man, the deer's back was just shining. And I was like, Hagen, I was like, there's a deer coming over here. And I got my binos up and I looked and I said, gee, I said, he's coming back through here. And he was coming back on the far side of the trail, coming back down that trail.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, I was, and he ended up making a good shot at 30 yards. And, you know, like I said, he didn't go 40.
Yeah.
Everybody says he didn't go 20, but it was a little bit further than that.
Right.
But it was like, you know, Warben and I were talking, and he texted me. He's like, "Hey, it's a killer video." He said, "Great deer." He said, "But he said, I'm gonna tell you what." He said, "You staying in the tree after missing, and then regaining your composure, and then making a good shot." He said, "That tells me more about you than killing that deer." He said, "That's unreal."
Yeah.
And that was you know, you learn a lot there in that hour that went by. I mean, I went from being way up here and when he was coming in to being deflated when I missed, and then being pissed for several minutes.
Right.
And then not giving up and getting out of the tree. You know, I'd planned on sitting all day. I mean, that wasn't the only buck in the area, obviously. I mean, there was sign everywhere.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, a lot of times people give up on a spot too quick, you know, when something like that happens, where it's like, if it's a good spot, it's a good spot. And it wasn't like it got boogered up. That deer had no clue what happened when that first shot missed him. Like he just heard something, was like, whoa, what is that? I mean, you can see the reaction. Like he's like, what just happened?
And raises nothing. Yeah. He was just kind of like, hey, something ain't right. And he kind of bound away.
Yeah. Yeah. So when stuff like that happens, it's like, you know, I think it's one of those things whenever you have something go wrong in a situation like that, you have to kind of read the situation for what it is. Like they're not all equal, you know? So it's like if you had a deer come in downwind of you and it's the one deer that you're hunting and you're in close to his bedding area or something like that. And he wins you and sees you and blows out of there. Maybe he blows or whatever the case is. Yeah. Spot's probably going to be boogered up.
It's probably time to jump ship.
Right. Time to move. But if you rip an arrow and a deer's coming through and has no clue that you were there, never smelled you, never saw you, knows he just heard something, you know, it's like, well, even if that deer doesn't turn back around and come back through, he didn't booger it up for anybody, other deer's going to come through.
That's exactly right.
You know what I mean? So, but yeah, man, it was a cool hunt. I was watching it. I know we were texting before that and you told me it was going to drop and then you went to ATA. So I spent a couple days waiting for it. And I was like, come on, man, give me the goods. Like you can't tell me that and then disappear.
Well, Kirk had gone mountain lion hunting and then we're so backlogged with content right now and trying to get it out.
Yeah.
Because, you know, we're both laying in the woods.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it ended up being a good video. And it was like I said, it was a grind from the 28th of October until I think I killed that deer on the 16th.
Mm-hmm.
Something like that in December. And they had just started moving again. I mean, it was, I'm telling you, like from the 25th, I mean, I hunted like 3 weeks and I bet you only saw, maybe one shooter.
Mm-hmm.
When, the 2 weeks prior to that, I was seeing 1, 2, 3 shooters a day.
Right.
From glass, from a distance, not on them. I mean, I was seeing them.
Yeah.
I mean, the does and everything just stopped moving.
Yeah.
Because we got that warm front and it just got real shitty. But, we stayed after it. We kept on hunting and it ended up paying off. I mean, that's the grinder effect, I guess you say.
It's the grinder effect. There you go. We'll name it that. The grinder effect.
I would not have. I would have continued deer hunting all the way until New Year's Eve if I hadn't had harvested that deer. I ended up finding 2 more deer in the late season, which is awesome, and I know they both lived.
Mm-hmm.
So they're going to be really good deer, I think, this fall, and gives me a place to start.
Nice. So that means we should have some good videos coming then the next season if we got a couple
I
good
hope
ones.
so, man. Well, I hope to show people this year. That's that's kind of the different approach I'm going to take too. Is we do a lot of they say kill videos.
Mm-hmm.
I want to do more. I mean, if we kill, then that's great.
You want to do more of the longer, I want to say longer, but like the in between stuff.
Yeah, I'd like to show people that, you know, I'm just not going out and killing a deer.
Yeah.
That it takes all of this up to it to kill something.
Yeah, exactly.
And then show them that and get more into that educational aspect and show people. I mean, I'd love to see more people out there hunting on the ground. I mean, even in Ohio and Kentucky, I mean, hunting on the ground is just not for out in the Midwest and here in West Virginia. I mean, you can do it. There's stalkers up in the Adirondacks and up in the man that just kick ass. I'd love to get with them and have them mentor me.
Yeah, for sure.
And show what those guys do.
Yeah, well, you got a convert here, man. You're forcing me to turn over a new leaf, but with that, man, I know I've kept you on here about an hour and a half. I want to be sensitive to your time. I know we both have work tomorrow. Got a school day, so
and we're supposed to get another snowstorm tonight, so I don't know if it'll be school or not.
Well, you keep all that down there. You know, don't.
I mean, we would rather have snow in December. I mean, snow in January doesn't do us any good.
Ain't doing any good.
All it does is hurt my back from shoveling this damn driveway I've got.
That's right. Hey, man, before I let you get going, dude, let people know where they can find out more about you. Let them know where they can find out more about the Untamed, where they can find your videos and all your content.
Yeah, so check out the Untamed on YouTube. You can find it by typing in the Untamed Hunt. You can find us on Instagram at the Untamed, Facebook at the Untamed, and let us know if you like it. Hit subscribe and follow us, and we have a hell of a good time.
They do, man. If you guys haven't checked out any of the Untamed videos yet, then I don't know where you've been. You've been sleeping, but wake up and check these guys out. Josh, buddy, I appreciate you, man.
Hey, dude, I always enjoy it, Clint. I always look forward to it, man.
That's right, dude. And we're gonna get a hunt in one of these days. That's happening.
Absolutely. Hell, I mean, I don't think we're about 6-7 hours apart. So
that's right. I'll make my way that way. Don't you worry. I'm coming. I'm bringing.
I want to come. I want to come northeast.
There you go, man. I got the rut wagon. You got a place. It's all good. What happens in the rut wagon stays in the rut wagon. That's the same. All right, brother. I'll see. You take care, man.
Thank you, Clint.
All right, folks, that is a wrap for today's show. I'd like to thank all of you for listening, and if you haven't yet, please head over to iTunes and leave us a 5-star rating, and be sure to subscribe to the podcast. And hell, while you're at it, head over to YouTube and give us a sub there too. I'd be super appreciative if you do those couple things for me. And before I shut this thing down, I need to give a big shout out to our partners who continue to help us make this podcast possible. Tethered, Spartan Forge, Exodus, and Skull Brew Coffee Company. And until next time, we'll see y'all.